Welcome to the Buckeye Blitz on FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media. I'm Jeff Thitoff, Tito they call me. You can follow me on the X at FitHappens. Make sure you go download the app. It's free for Apple and Android users for FanStream Sports app, and you can catch all of our programming. We have so many great things that are coming out every day, live round-the-clock programming. Go check it out. FanStreamSports.com is the website. Download the free app, Apple and Android users, FanStream app. All right, it wasn't always pretty, but a 49-14 win is still a solid win for this Ohio State team to get to 4-0 heading into their Big Ten opener, East Lansing, Saturday night against Sparty. When you look at all that happened, it makes the final score, though, look even better for Ohio State. Look, Marshall took the opening kickoff, marched down the field, 6 minutes, 46 seconds, 13 plays, 75 yards, ended with a 1-yard score by Ethan Payne. And it was the first touchdown score to the Buckeyes this season, and it really felt like the first time the Buckeyes have been kind of bullied by another team because Marshall had their way on that opening drive. They went right down the field, creative with the play calling. And although, like, I'm never at a point like, oh, Ohio State's in trouble, that's the first time I've seen Ohio State just really get pushed around on the field this year. So very interesting to see how they responded, and they did so in a great way. On the second offensive play they had, it was a 68-yard touchdown pass from Will Howard to Emeka Egbuka. So that punch from Marshall was countered successfully by the Buckeyes. Then after forcing a punt, though, Marshall had to punt it away. Will Howard was intercepted by Josh Moten, and the pass was intended for Jeremiah Smith. And I kind of put the INT, the interception, on Smith. I think could have done more to prevent the interception from happening, from Moten catching the ball, or maybe just hauling it himself. It looked like he could have done more. But for the second time in the first quarter, the Buckeyes again faced some adversity. And so wanted to see how they respond to that one. OSU did force a turnover on downs and then drove down for Will Howard run from 1 yard out. So another answer to a punch by the Thundering Herd. Now, unfortunately, the ensuing kickoff for Ohio State by Jaden Fielding went out of bounds and gave Marshall the ball at its own 35-yard line. And foreshadowing here, it was assumed to be a recurring event. So Marshall then was forced to punt, though. Brandon Ennis, who's been so good in the return game, he's been very consistent and hasn't made any mistakes in the return game so far. But he muffed the punt. Marshall's Ian Foster recovered it at the Ohio State 16. So now it looked like Ohio State could be in trouble at that moment, but it was called back for illegal formation on Marshall. Marshall had to punt it again, and it ended up being a fair catch for Ennis at the 14-yard line for Ohio State. And then on Ohio State's next play, Quinshon Junkins took off for 86 yards for a score. And again, though, Fielding kicked the ball out of bounds on the ensuing kickoff. Now, I want to just sort of do a recap of all the drives, but I am leading up to something, I promise. This all makes sense. But eventually, Marshall added a score at the end of the first half with another impressive drive. It was helped by a 10-yard completion on 4th and 4 from Stone Earl to Elijah Metcalf. That also had a targeting call on Cade Curry that forced Curry out of the game. So that was a big play there. I didn't think it was targeting. I looked at the replay several times. Did not look like targeting to me. They called it anyway. Curry gets ejected from the game, and now it's 28-14 at the half. These numbers, though, in the first half, Marshall had drives that went 13 plays. They had 2 9-play drives and an 8-play drive, all in the first half. They ran 46 offensive plays compared to Ohio State's 21. On 21 offensive plays, Ohio State had 28 points. On 46 offensive plays, Marshall had 14. Ohio State had that turnover, too. Could have been 2 turnovers, had 1 turnover, though, and they kicked the ball 3 times. Marshall got the ball 3 times at their own 35 from the ball being kicked out of bounds by Fielding. And so the Thundering Herd, they were able to move the ball with relative ease in that first half against Ohio State. When you have drives of 13, 9, 9, and 8, that's a pretty good first half against this vaunted Ohio State defense. And I think Ohio State was pretty lucky to be they're only giving up 14 points in that during that time frame. All right. So as usual, Jim Knowles, the defense made fantastic adjustments in the second half. After the first half, the 46 plays for Marshall. Second half, 24 plays, just gained 71 yards. That's all they had in the second half. And this is what Knowles does. And the defensive staff, to be fair. Look at the track record since Jim Knowles arrived at Ohio State, and the defense rarely gets outplayed by opposing offenses in the second half. They make tremendous adjustments. Jim Knowles is very good at doing that. And so Ohio State did that. And look, quite frankly, like in the Akron game, and Ohio State is so physical on defense that they really put a punishment on opposing teams. The guys leave nicked up, leave with injuries and whatnot. That happens. This Ohio State team is a hard-hitting team. OSU, for the entire game, had the ball for just 23 minutes and 45 seconds and gained 569 yards. Will Howard finished 16 of 20 for 275 yards, 2 touchdowns, that one unfortunate interception. Quinshon Judkins was 14 carries, 173 and 2 touchdowns. And Travion Henderson was 6 for 78 and 2 touchdowns. The Buckeyes as a team averaged like 9 yards a carry. A fantastic running game again. And I love how Chip Kelly's doing this. And Travion Henderson, only 6 carries. I know he's fresh. He's not injured. In years past, we've had problems with Travion getting hurt. Having Judkins there with him, that makes this a lot easier. Judkins, who I think led the league in, led the Division I college football in carries last year, only had to have 14 in this game to get his 173 yards. And like I say, the 2 touchdowns, the 86-yard run, Henderson 6 for 78. These guys are going to stay fresh, which I love to see. It's good for both of them. Good for both of their long-term careers when they go to the NFL. Emeka Egbuka, great game for him. 5 catches, for 117 yards and the 1 touchdown. Jeremiah Smith, 3 catches, 70 yards, and a touchdown. And after that kickoff debacle with fielding, Austin Snyder handled the last 3 with no problem. 2 of them ended up being touchbacks. Switching back over really quickly on the defense now. Lathan Ransom was all over the field on defense. He finished with 8 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, and a forced fumble. Hurtsay Styles' name called quite a bit. He had 7 tackles. Denzel Ward had 6. And now we get to go, Ohio State now gets to go and take on Michigan State in East Lansing. The Buckeyes remain 3rd in the AP poll behind Texas and Georgia and just ahead of Alabama. Michigan State's 3-1. Ohio State is opened up as a 24-point favorite. It's moved to 25 now in that night game in East Lansing. Ohio State did not cover against Marshall. I expect they'll cover against Michigan State. The problem, the thing with Michigan State is they're 3-1, just had their first loss against a very good Boston College team this past weekend. But Michigan State, and they're well coached by Jonathan Smith, the former Oregon State coach. He has come in after the Mel Tucker stuff that went on and has the team looking a lot better than it has the last couple of years. But Michigan State, one of the teams they're going to face too, they're going to find when they play Ohio State, is Ohio State can strike so fast and so often on offense. It's going to a lot of times force your offense to play a more aggressive style of football. And that's what happened in the Marshall game also, because if you watch, and not to mention just the adjustments, but Marshall's opening drive, a lot of quick passes and a couple of quarterback draws in there and things like that. They did some things in there that kept Ohio State off balance a little bit, but they could play conservatively. It was a 0-0 game. But once Ohio State gets up on you, if you're a team that normally does not go big play and plays a little conservative approach, you're going to have a hard time catching up and getting back in the game against the Buckeyes. That's the beauty of this team, is that Ohio State, Marshall goes down there, that methodical long drive, 6 minutes, 45 seconds, whatever it was, 13 plays, and then Ohio State scores on their second play from scrimmage. Judkins scores on that first carry, the first carry of that drive, the 86-yarder. That's Ohio State's got that big play potential all game long and enough weapons around that if they jump out to an early lead on Michigan State, it's going to force Michigan State to change the way they play on offense. And that's when Ohio State's defense will take over. That's when they get that edge there. So we'll do more of a deep dive, but Ohio State can beat you so many ways. Chip Kelly's done a fantastic job calling plays so far. And getting to play Michigan State on Saturday in their Big Ten opener is going to be a lot of fun to watch in a night game in East Lansing. But Big Ten news this past weekend, Illinois beat Nebraska. They both came in ranked and undefeated, and Illinois goes into Lincoln and beats Nebraska in overtime. Dylan Raiola for the Cornhuskers had an awful snap awful series in overtime. Illinois gets the ball, scores right away in overtime, gets a touchdown, and then Raiola, there's first a holding penalty on Nebraska. Raiola gets sacked. Raiola throws, then they threw a pass, that was completed for a few yards, but they were facing at one point a 3rd and 42, in overtime. 3rd and 42. They get it to 4th and 24. 4th and 24, Raiola gets sacked again, end of the game. I really thought Nebraska would win that game against Illinois, but look, Bielema for Illinois, he knows how to win in the Big Ten. Matt Rule in Nebraska, they keep losing close games, and that was a big loss for Nebraska in that one. Rutgers wins again. They're undefeated, playing at Virginia Tech now coming up this week. I love Rutgers. The big game, though, Michigan USC. USC goes into the big house and they went in there as a 5.5-point favorite, 4.5 in some books had it that way. But in Michigan's offense, their passing offense was pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. They only had 32 passing yards in the whole game. Michigan did. They ran the ball really well. 32 passing yards is all they had in that game. In the second half, they only had 20 total offensive yards until the game-winning drive for Michigan. And so USC threw a pick six. Michigan's defense was great again, but they escaped with a victory over USC. And that vaults Michigan back up. I think they're ranked like 11th or 12th now, somewhere like that. They moved up in the polls quite a bit. Trust me, Michigan's not that good. A big win for them? Yes. A huge loss for USC? Indeed. But I still think it's Ohio State and Oregon are the ones it comes down to. I thought USC might be able to threaten. Now I'm less enthused with USC. They host Penn State and Notre Dame. If they get another loss out of those two, then you might not see USC in the CFP. But we'll keep an eye on all of that. This weekend, the big games, other than Ohio State, Michigan State, for Buckeye fans, obviously. But Alabama and Georgia, they play in Tuscaloosa in Alabama on Saturday night. It's a 7:30 Eastern time kick. The number 2 and number 4 team in the country. So that'll have a shakeup there somewhere in the rankings. I think Georgia's like a 2-point favorite opening up in this. This is the first time Alabama's been a home underdog in 17 years. So 2007 was the last time that happened. So lots of good college football this weekend. Utah looks like the favorite in the Big 12. Miami, the Hurricanes look like the favorite in the ACC. Syracuse suffered a demoralizing loss to Stanford at home with former Buckeye quarterback Will Howard there. But look, we're going to week 5 here now of the college football season. Can't wait for that. Make sure you download the FanStream Sports app, free for Apple and Android users. I'm going out to Vegas for a few days. I'll be giving you a preview of Michigan State while I'm out there. I'll give you a post-game quick thing about Michigan State. I'll do it live from Vegas when I do that. Can't wait to see the sports book out there and watch these games. It's going to be a lot of fun. Follow me on the X @ThatHappens. This has been the Buckeye Blitz on FanStream Sports, powered by DSP Media.